Hello everyone and welcome to my first of 3 videos on the Nikon D80. This video is going to cover everything on the camera and what it is. The second video will talk about how to do all of the things this camera can do with the exception of the menus. And then the third video will dive into the menus here and we'll go through what every single menu item is and explain how they affect all of your photographic settings and what they do for your images. We're going to jump right in here to the Nikon D80, which is an interchangeable lens DSLR. What does that mean? Simply that you can take a lens off, put a different one on at any time when you're not taking a photo without affecting your images. DSLR means digital SLR. D for a digital sensor. SLR, single lens reflex. There's a single lens on the front of this. The light from the lens reaches that mirror, bounces up to the reflex housing up here, and then to your eye for image composition. This has an aps-c 10.2 megapixel CCD image sensor. What that means is it has an aps-c sized sensor. Never do what I'm about to do, but I'm going to show you the shutter, which is inside of the camera right there, is just a little bit bigger than the size of the sensor. It uses a 420 pixel red, green, blue sensor for 3D matrix metering. What that means is there's a small sensor that has 420 pixels. It can see color and it can use depth information from select lenses to determine the best meter reading for the scene in front of the camera. The shutter speeds are 30 seconds to 1/4000th of a second, as well as bulb. Bulb means that when you push the shutter button down, the shutter opens and it stays open until you release the shutter button. It has a 3 frame per second burst speed with a buffer of 6 RAW images or 100 JPEG images. The viewfinder, which is on the back of the camera here, has a 0.94x magnification and a 95% frame coverage. All right, what does that mean? The 0.94x magnification means if what you're seeing right now is what was going to be on your sensor, what you saw in the viewfinder would be 94% of the size of what would reach your sensor. That is, for an aps-c camera, a good number. And that means that you have the ability to do some fairly precise manual focus lens use with this camera if you so choose. 95% frame coverage means that, again, let's assume that what you're seeing right now is what's on the sensor. You're going to lose about 2.5% of the scene on either side, top and bottom. It's not a perfectly even split, but that's a good concept demonstration. That will be, this whole thing will be on your sensor, but there will be a little bit that you won't see in your viewfinder. The ISO range is 100 to 1600 and can be extended up to 12,800. Flash sync is 1/200th of a second, and it has no video capability, so you cannot use this camera to record video. It just predates the computing power inside cameras that could do that. The target market for the Nikon D80 when it was released was the enthusiast photographer. It was made, and we know that because it is a fairly high-level camera in terms of its specifications. The build quality is decent, not quite professional grade, and the size is slightly smaller than, say, a professional camera would be, but bigger than one of the entry-level cameras of the time. It was made by Nikon in Thailand from 2006 until 2008, preceded by the D70S and followed by the D90. Now, if you have your Nikon D80, we're going to go through all of the features on the camera and discuss what all of them are. And we're going to start up here on the top, okay? Well, starting technically kind of on the sides. These are the strap bars, and this is where you would connect a camera strap so that you could carry the camera easily. Mode dial. This is your mode dial index right here. And then there's a little symbol right here on the back of the camera. This is your sensor plane indicator. So if you're doing high magnification work like macro work or microscopy and you need to calculate your magnification ratios and things, this is your sensor plane. This is your pop-up flash here. This is your flash hot shoe. Here's the LCD screen, and I'm going to have to get a new battery for this camera, aren't I? Oh, it doesn't even have a battery. Yeah, I'll have to do that. Okay, LCD screen. Here we have your meter mode button. Here is your exposure value compensation button. This is your power switch index off, on, and illuminate the LCD right here. Shutter button. Drive mode button. autofocus button. And the so this button up here, the meter mode, and this button, the delete button, both have the same symbol, which is format. And if you hold them down together, you can format your CF card and erase all the photos on it. The AF button here has a green dot next to it, and there should be another button with a green dot somewhere. Oh yeah, here it is, the EV comp. And if you hold those down together, I believe that what they do is reset your settings. So that's everything on the top of the camera. On the front of the camera, we have a few items to look at. This is your front command wheel that gives you some helps you control the settings and functions on the camera. This is your autofocus assist light, and what it does is light up if there's not enough light in your setting for the autofocus to work properly, and that will give you enough light for autofocus to work. This is the function button. Yes, function button, depth of field preview button, lens communication switch. This is the drive for the autofocus screw drive motor right here. Lens lock pin, lens release button, lens mounting index. Here we have your flash release button, your bracketing button. That looks like something, but it looks like that might be a dummy port for something right there. Like maybe they used the same top plate for a higher end camera and there's something on that one. That doesn't look like anything right there. Lens release button, autofocus mode selector between autofocus and manual right there. On this side of the camera, we'll start at the bottom, and here you have the remote control port. So you can plug in a corded remote control to use this camera. Here we have 3 different ports, USB, DC in, and video out. So the USB is a mini USB, probably a mini USB 1 given the age of this camera. You probably can still connect this to a modern camera. In 2024 would be Windows 11. You probably could connect this to Windows 10 and 11 and have it communicate with the computer, but that's going to be a very slow data rate. Then your DC in cable right here, if you have the power adapter, would plug in, and that was, which one was it? Video out. So this is not for recording video, this is for connecting to an analog television so that you could do a slideshow on that television. When this camera came out, HDMI was present on TVs, but they also still had an analog AV port. On this side, we have the SD card port right here, and we'll see how to use that in the second video. On the back of the camera, we have the delete button here, the viewfinder eyepiece. This is your diopter adjuster right here, and you can increase or decrease your diopter, and it goes from -2 to +1. So the way that you use the diopter adjuster on this camera, because it doesn't have a live view function, is you'll manually focus your lens on something close up with a fine focus point. Say the tip of a pencil works really well. This is best if you have the camera on a tripod and say the pencil in like a grip, right? So it's not moving, okay? You'll manually focus on the pencil tip and take a photo. And you'll be using the viewfinder here, right, for that. Then you'll play back the photo. You'll take a look and see if the pencil tip is in focus. If it is, your diopter is set correctly. If not, adjust the diopter until the photo you take has the tip of the pencil in focus, just like is in your viewfinder. Okay, and that's how you adjust the diopter to figure out what you want to have it set at. This is your AEL AFL button. This is covered in the third video because there's going to be a menu item about how to use this. Rear command dial, cross pad, lock button. Specifically, focus selector lock is what it's called. OK, LCD screen, playback, menu, white balance and help and lock, different functions based on where you are in the menu. ISO adjustment plus playback zoom out, image quality plus playback zoom in. On the bottom of the camera, we have the battery chamber here, made in Thailand, your Nikon information, model number, serial number, things like that, and your tripod socket. I do have some things not to do with your Nikon D80. The first is that you do not want to touch the mirror here, and you don't want to touch the shutter, and you don't want to touch the sensor, all for very similar reasons. Your finger oils can affect these in different and terrible ways. If your finger oil gets onto the mirror, it can, over time, tarnish the mirror, which will affect your ability to have proper autofocus and metering. If you touch the shutter curtain back there, your finger oils can get onto the shutter curtain and cause them to get sticky, which might affect their operation, or you can actually jam the shutter curtain leaves onto different tracks and cause the leaves to get jammed and ruin your shutter. And if you touch the sensor itself, you can get a fingerprint right on the sensor, and that's going to mess up every image you take and be very difficult to clean off. So don't do any of that. Don't leave your camera in your car, because aside from being a theft target, because it is a camera and cameras are always going to be theft targets in cars, what you can have happen is the heat will affect the plastic in the camera. It will affect the lubricating oils in the lenses. The oils will get very thin, and they will get places they shouldn't be. When they get back to proper viscosity, they will mess up the works of your camera. Plastic can warp and deform or crack in extreme heat and cold. So that's an extreme heat. Extreme cold can also cause the lubricating oils to get very thick and gummy and not work correctly. So don't leave them in your car overnight, during the day, unattended, when you just go into a gas station to pay for your tank of gas or whatever. The other thing is, don't store these in a plastic bag or box, because plastic is moisture permeable, and it's easier for moisture to get in than it is to get out. And once it's there, moisture can cause fungus to grow on your lens optics or the optical system of your camera, and that can really degrade your image quality. Don't let your D80 get wet. It's not weather sealed, and you just don't want to let any water get in here, because that will short out your camera and ruin it. And just remember that your Nikon D80 is a precision tool that should be handled with care and respect. As long as you take care of your camera will take care of you. So that's it for the first video. In the next video, we'll talk about how to use all of this, and then on the third video, we'll go over the menu system. Hey everyone, if that video was helpful, check out this other video that might be helpful too.